Welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast with your host, Justin Tamzett. With over 30 years in the fitness industry, JT is a globally recognised authority with a mission to lower healthcare costs worldwide by getting more people moving and moving more often in quality facilities with qualified professionals. Every episode, JT digs deep with our guests to bring you insights that will help you lead, innovate, and boost your bottom line. So let's dive in. Take it away, JT.
Hey, JT. You know the folks running the fitness associations are all volunteers, right? If you think you can do it better, why not step up and join them? I took the challenge head on. I stopped my whinging and my bitching over the water cooler because back when I was younger, we didn't have keyboards to be worriers about. We just bitched and whinged around a water cooler. So I joined the executive team of my state association and eventually the national body here in Australia. It wasn't until I was on the inside that I truly understood how hard these people, both the paid staff and the volunteers, work behind the scenes to support our incredible industry. The moving parts are almost impossible to grasp until you're totally immersed in that association world. Trust me, it's mind-blowing. And today, I'm thrilled to have three incredibly busy CEOs from the Health and Fitness Association, Oz Active and Exercise New Zealand. Barry, Liz and Richard will be sharing the lobbying efforts they're driving in their own countries, how their associations are elevating their industry, and what you can do to make our industry even more extraordinary. And by the end of the 30 minutes, I guarantee you're going to be ready to wave the fitness industry flag in the faces of your local government officials. We have a brand new segment called 3 Minutes of Wise Words. This segment is an expert sharing their wisdom. We'll change up the theme from business operations and strategy to personal well-being and productivity. So let's hear 3 minutes of wise words from our expert, Lindsay Vastola from Vast Potential.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Vastola. I'm the founder of Vast Potential, and I help fitness business owners and leaders optimize their most important asset, their people. And today I want to talk about something that's a silent game changer that's rarely talked about in the fitness industry, and it's costing owners and leaders. It's emotional intelligence. EQ is responsible for upwards of 60% of workplace performance, including skills necessary for effective leadership, sales and marketing, communication and retention. Yet many gym owners and leaders are unknowingly throttling their revenue potential and then struggle to retain clients and staff because of a lack of these essential EQ skills. So in broad definition, EQ covers self-awareness, self-management, social awareness like empathy, and the ability to effectively manage relationships. So it's imperative that as leaders, we invest in constantly developing EQ. Why? Because EQ directly impacts every point of the business lifeline, from attraction to conversion to retention, and not only to attract and retain members, but also to attract and retain top talent. Get this, 90% of top performers have high EQ. EQ is responsible, as I mentioned earlier, for upwards of 60% of your job performance. And this is important to note. This is at all levels of an organization. And get this, businesses, companies that integrate EQ into their culture and into their systems outperform the market by 910%. So here's the catch. We know these soft skills are important, but how do we operationalize EQ into our business systems? So here are 3 ways that you can take these soft skills and sort of bake them into your business systems and see how they impact your revenue, retention, and even your reputation. First, really emphasize hiring EQ over IQ. Basically, we want to put that focus on candidates that are coachable, resourceful, navigate complexities and challenging conversations over even technical skills and an impressive resume. Remember, it's upwards of 60% of their job performance will be dictated by their EQ, not their IQ. Second, commit 3 to 5% of your annual budget to employee development in non-technical skills like communication, leadership, sales, and personal development. And third, don't go at it alone. Leverage resources to maximize your time and tools as a leader. I'd love to help empower your team and your businesses with these critical skills. So I have a series of trainings on EQ and these type of soft skills and different resources. You're welcome to join me over on my website, www.maximizemyteam.com. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Lindsay. And that's a great explanation of EQ. You can find Lindsay's contact details at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Now, after the CEO panel, I have Dana from eGym to join us. I had a workout on their new kit recently, and it simply blew me away with the range of movement, the eccentric and concentric movement patterns. But it was really the app that added a whole new layer of engagement for me. And I think you'll love what this could do in your club. Now, of course, I will also give you a peek behind the curtain of who our guest is in 2 weeks. You won't want to miss that teaser. Oh, one final plug. If you're watching the video or you can see pictures online on socials, I'm wearing merch today thanks to Rex Roundtables. Rex are great supporters of the podcast, so check out rexroundtables.com. And if you'd like me to wear your merch during an interview, contact me and I'll be happily your social influencer. Okay, let's get ready to rumble. Liz, Barry, and Richard. So just in case no one's read the show notes or even stumbled across the podcast previously or perhaps even lived under a rock for the last umpteen years, in 30 seconds or less, Barry, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thanks, JT. Barry Olbrich, CEO of AusActive. 6 years ago, I came to this organisation, which was then known as Fitness Australia, on a 6-month contract to see what we could do in terms of getting the organisation relevant and valuable to the sector. That 6-month contract has now turned into 6 years. I was going into retirement. I've put retirement on the shelf. I love this industry. It's so positive. It's so powerful. It's so energetic. And I'm really enjoying being here.
Lovely, Barry. Thank you. And yes, definitely keep that retirement right out the back. Liz, another kind of new person, but not so new these days.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, so much for having me. And I'm so happy to be here with Barry and Richard, my dear friends. No, listen, President and CEO of the Health and Fitness Association, formerly known as IRSA. And I've been in the seat now for 3 years. Before that, I headed up advocacy for the candy industry. Then I was at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and I was with the chemical industry before that. So I've spent most of my entire career on the advocacy side of things and only in association management. So I'm thrilled to be part of the Health and Fitness Association.
That is awesome. And during this interview, I really want to touch on the rebrand and also obviously what you're doing up at Capitol Hill. And across the Dutch, Richard Betty.
Good morning, JT and Barry and Liz. So I've had 37 years in the industry now. I started off as a group exercise instructor, moved into club operator and club owner. And then after that, soon realised some of my passion was around the industry. So got involved with Exercise New Zealand, first on the board and then eventually as CEO. I'm still a CEO and now I sit on a number of boards internationally, including Health and Fitness Association. And I have a real passion for exercise being recognised on the health continuum. And we can explore that a little bit more later, but that's kind of my passion right now.
I love that our 3 guests are so passionate about our industry because you're all paid nothing because our industry pays nothing. So I appreciate your passion. One of the interesting things I think if we look about our industry, since Richard and I started 30 plus years ago, the industry has now evolved to a multitude of different business models, different modalities. And I guess as association leaders, you guys are grappling with the variety of different business models. How do we define the fitness industry these days with those varying modalities? Why would they join your associations? Why don't we start with you this time? We'll go Richard, Liz, and then Barry.
So look, I think to start with, I would not call it the fitness industry. I'd call it the exercise industry. And I know it's just a word, but I think it's really important because to me, fitness is one of the outcomes that we get in the same way that weight loss could be an outcome or flexibility or strength, because exercise is the product. Or you might even want to call it structured physical activity, but that doesn't quite sound as sexy. So I'm going to call it the exercise industry. And I think that I just define that as anyone that offers physical activity in a structured way to the public. And whether you're a trainer, a facility, in a school hall, on the beach, it doesn't really matter. So sort of agnostic agnostic as to the modality and agnostic to where or how it's delivered, but if you're doing that for the public. And I think the reason that we should work together, why do you want to join your association, is we all want the same thing. We want more, and in our case, I'd say in New Zealand, we want more New Zealanders exercising. And so if you're in New Zealand, if you are a provider of exercise, then work with us to make that happen. And the thing that's unique about associations is we don't do the thing that we most want. We want Kiwis exercising, but we don't offer that to the public. We support those that do. So it's a very unique situation. And that's true, I think, of all associations, but it's unique in as a business model, because the one thing that we most want, our mission and our vision, is actually not the thing that we deliver. We deliver it through our members. And so we support our members to be successful, and we're only successful if our members are successful. And so that would be my big pitch for why you'd want to be part of an association. And I think that would apply to all the three that are here today.
Yeah, Richard, I'll just jump in. I think you said it really well there. And I think another thing, in addition to being exercise, and it's why through our new rebrand, if you will, why we very deliberately added the word health and fitness to who we are, because we think that we need to be part of the health continuum moving forward. And we are leading fitness through health. So that was all a very deliberate part of our brand. But, you know, when people ask me, and this was another thing, was who do you represent and what do you do, right? I just always say, well, we're gyms and fitness centers and everything in them and the community that we build around them. So part of preventative healthcare is part of this. Our three main focuses of the association are exactly what you just said, Richard, not necessarily doing business in a club, but we are doing advocacy, we are doing research, and we are doing education and networking. So those are our core strengths, and we're doubling down on them.
And Barry, obviously, Fitness Australia rebranded as well. Tell us about your views.
Yeah, so look, I guess just to unpack a little bit what Richard and Liz have just said, and I would agree with that wholeheartedly, I just probably add one more word to the terminology we're throwing around here. Like Richard, I think we've moved away from fitness. We use exercise. We also use physical activity, because they all have different meanings. And when we talk to government down here, they keep saying, well, we're supporting sport. And then our response to that is, well, all sport requires physical activity, but very little physical activity actually requires sport. In our sector here in Australia, I actually believe that we are the main player in preventive health. That is our role, that is our job, that is our opportunity as an industry association. The health system here in Australia is unsustainable in its current guise. We're an ageing population, appalling rates of chronic disease and all the rest of it. All of us on this call know that sort of gear. Our role as an association, and why people should join us as an association, is so when we go and speak to government and bureaucrats and they say, well, who are you? Who do you represent? We say, well, we represent 3/4 of the industry, 3/4 of the people that work in the industry. We are here to help you, Mr. Government. You have a problem with your health budget. We are the primary provider of preventive health services in this country. You need to talk to us. You need to listen to us. And that's why members should join us.
It's fascinating, the evolution. I think, Richard, you'd agree, the evolution from fitness to exercise to wellness and when we're all heading. And I think perhaps the precipice of this might have come about through 2020 and the C word and the pandemic that we don't talk about. And there's no question that the fitness industry or the exercise industry or whatever we want to term ourselves has been screwed by governments all over the world in 2020, closing us down, if not before, and still, if not afterwards. So let me ask you, Richard, because you've been around the longest, respectfully, why is the relationship with governments just so important, perhaps now more than ever?
I think Barry said it really well, is that we're a solution to many of their problems. And health is probably the most obvious one and the most expensive one. You know, in New Zealand, I was recently quoted in one of the newspapers talking about a $500 million problem. Now, in many countries, $500 million isn't a lot of money. In New Zealand, it is. You know, we don't have trillions of dollars. We have billions of dollars in terms of government expenditure. So $500 million in terms of, well, I just say wasted money that could be completely avoided if people were physically active in New Zealand. That's the solution that we can offer them. But also, I actually think, you know, they talk about the magic pill in terms of the health outcome, but we're a magic pill in so many contexts. If you talk about unemployment rates, exercise is shown to reduce unemployment. It's shown to reduce crime. And even people who are in prison who exercise regularly. I mean, there's so many powerful ways you can use it. Now, we're not going to be the prime and the sole provider of that. But for governments to see structured physical activity as a crucial element, particularly of health, but of so many other things, because these are interrelated. It's like saying, how do we solve world poverty? Well, there's no one thing that you do, but in terms of if we're trying to solve the health crisis globally, and we know that there is a health crisis and primarily driven by lack of money, it's a bottomless pit that you could continue to throw billions, if not trillions at, and you still won't deliver every health outcome. But we could avoid so much of the cost if we just got more people physically active. Now, again, easy to describe, hard to do, but that's our job.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a challenge to articulate that to the government, who probably aren't really listening, because at the end of the day, we're not the number one employer, or we're not the number one contributor to potentially income into an economy. But I tell you what, we can, as you both have alluded to, we can save a boatload on expenses of health. Liz, in March, we saw IHRSA rebrand to the Health and Fitness Association, which I'm positive would help you in the corridors of Washington. Has it? And what do your lobbying efforts in the US look like?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So the answer is yes, it's helped, and it was necessary from the minute I got here. Now, in many instances, people on Capitol Hill didn't even know what or had heard of what IHRSA was, so I didn't really have to make up a lot of ground. I just got to introduce ourselves as what we've all been saying as health and fitness, and I've actually been saying the global health and fitness industry since I got here. So that has helped. It has opened a lot of doors, and we are currently doing a lot of things. From a policy perspective, before I jump into any of that, our first sort of North Star goal is talking about our image and reputation as an industry. And we know that we've got some of that to fix from years past. And so we are trying to show that we're good actors, we're good employers, we're paying taxes, we're doing all the good things that our businesses do, but we're a real business community. And so that's been an important part of changing the narrative a little bit there. And then when you look at all of the things that we're touching right now as far as health policy goes, so we of course have FIT, the legislation that's been around to be able to use your health insurance dollars towards gym memberships, and we're getting closer with that every month. But then now we're having really interesting emerging talks about the GLP-1 environment and what that looks like, and why, if we're going to start prescribing these, it should also come with a prescription for physical activity. And what does that look like? So that's been a really important thing. Here in the US, we know we've got the President Trump's tax cuts that are expiring next year, which is going to offer a lot of opportunity to be part of the tax conversation and what that looks like. Military readiness, we have a major, all of our countries have a military readiness problem. I think that keeping our military fit or even recruiting to the military is an issue. And then last but not least, we're actually getting involved on behalf of our suppliers on things like product safety issues to make sure that those councils know all of the good, responsible things that we're doing above board to make sure that we're making healthy and safe equipment. So quite a few things.
Yeah, that's far more than I ever imagined. Barry, I want to ask you a similar question about lobbying the Australian government. Was there anything more degrading to our industry when our Prime Minister said during COVID that all gyms are closed, including pilots' studios?
Well, I guess they also included us along with brothels. I know you said we don't want to talk about the big C word, but I actually think coming in from outside the sector, COVID was actually a great thing for the industry. It rattled our cages at the time, but I think it actually caused us to have a bit of introspection and reflection as to why we were treated so badly. And I think to some degree, we created our own problem there, but we've moved on from that. In terms of advocacy from AusActive's point of view, last year we ran a very successful Fit for Office campaign down in Canberra. We're doing that again this year. We are anticipating probably about double the number of politicians involved. It's going to be launched in Parliament House, the Parliament House gym, by the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate are both going to come down and launch that officially. With our lobbying, it all comes down to dollars. And I've learned in other roles, particularly in early childhood, that if you can't talk dollars to government, they're not interested. So we have to be able to prove to the government the value of investing in our sector. The things that we are looking at, our GDP figures are due to be released today in Australia. The general trend or thinking is it's going to be on life support, if any at all. Coming out of the Harvard University last year was research. It clearly showed that people's productivity in the workplace can be improved by exercising, having work breaks, during the day and so on. I was really pleased to hear the Shadow Minister say publicly 2 weeks ago after we'd met with her that a $1,000 gym membership is more cost effective than a $30,000 hip replacement. We're starting to get some traction there. She also said they're talking to the private health funds along the lines that Liz mentioned about giving the health funds the ability to actually pay for gym memberships. They want to do that, but legislation at the moment does not allow them to do that. We also believe that the fringe benefits tax that applies to employers that provide exercise facilities or gym memberships for their staff should be equalised. So to put that into context, the gym in Parliament House, it's a beautiful gym, squash courts, pools, you name it. People that work in Parliament House, not just the parliamentarians, pay $200 a year for that. That's effectively subsidised by the taxpayer. If I have a gym in my office here that I own, I can provide provide gym membership with no fringe benefits tax payable. If I pay for my staff to go to the gym next door, I pay fringe benefits tax. So there's inequities there that need to be fixed up very much so. But we also want, and we were talking about this before we went live, JT, we want the commitments the government has given in their preventive health strategy, their obesity strategy, their diabetes strategy, all of which indicates and states there will be a public health campaign encouraging physical activity. We want that enacted and funded as part of the budget coming up before the next federal election here in Australia.
Barry, can you explain what Fit for Office is?
Yeah, so Fit for Office, it's a fun competition between politicians where basically they prove they are fit for office by using MyZone technology, and they get MECs to see how they go over a 3-week period. Last year we had 26 federal politicians and 150 staff involved. This year we are anticipating 40 politicians and 200 staff. It's very friendly. It's not competitive. It's just really to raise the awareness of the importance of exercise. But from AusActive's point of view, the 26 politicians last year who were involved, I now have their 26 private emails. So when I want to make contact with, and it was across the House, Labor, Liberal, Independents, Senate, Reps, it was across the board, politician from the Labor Party, from the government, the guy that came second was the Shadow Treasurer, and so on. Very inclusive exercise, excuse the pun, got a lot of really good media, and we are really looking forward to doing it again, as are the politicians.
And Liz, you do Fit for Office in the US as well?
Yeah, we do. It's not, we don't call it that. We have a different campaign for it. It's the Congressional Physical Activity Challenge. But yes, we do that every year in May. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we have hundreds of Hill staffers and members of Congress that participate in it year after year.
And Richard, based on the size of New Zealand, do you do anything similar where you could get maybe 1 or 2 people in the government exercising?
Well, actually, I'm glad you asked, JT, because funny enough, I love stealing other people's good ideas. So we're looking at launching Fit for Office, actually using MyZone technology as well, sometime next year. And funny enough, it was after meeting a couple of MPs who went to the gym in Parliament, exactly like Barry talked about. And it's really interesting. I think there's been a sea change over the last 10, 15 years where people I talk to in government and people I talk to in the media, it's very common for them to exercise. And you might go, so what? 15 years ago was not. Lots of people liked having excuses why they didn't. And again, I'm not judging anyone that doesn't or didn't exercise, but then they'd want to justify why other people shouldn't. You know, it's really expensive after all. You shouldn't have to pay to exercise. No, you're right. You can go for a walk, but you don't. So what are you going to do about it? You know, I'll challenge people all the time that say, oh, I can't afford it. If you smoke, you can afford it. You choose not to, which again, no judgment, but just please don't say you can't afford it because you can. You choose to spend it on cigarettes, which again, you're allowed to. It's a free country, or at least the 3 we're talking about. So the key thing I think with government interventions is that, and lobbying, is we need to think globally, because the issues that Liz and Barry talked about are exactly the same in New Zealand. But we do need to act locally because there are nuanced differences. For example, our GST, our sales tax, would never be removed from gym memberships. In Australia, it might be because you do have some exemptions. In the US, it's predominantly at a state level. So there's a whole lot of different approaches. Here, just don't do it at all. Don't waste your time. In the States, absolutely, but also some states would be a great idea. Others don't bother because that's not how it works. You know, that's just off the table. And so you've got to think locally when you are engaging with government. And by locally, I mean in the country or in the state in some cases. And it's about, I always go, what do they want? Because if you're coming into an election cycle, what they want is different to when they're in the middle of an election cycle. And if we're talking to the health minister, it's different to the shadow health minister, because what they're wanting often is profile. Okay, how do I get them that profile? By getting what I want, or getting what our industry wants, most importantly. And so I think that some of the best work has actually been done by both Australia and the US, and I love stealing their good ideas and making it our own in New Zealand. The one thing we have, which is a massive advantage, is one level of government. So imagine effectively a House of Representatives, and that's the federal government. It's also the regional government. It's also the city government. Now, good and bad, because if we get wrong and they don't get on board, that's it. There is no second chance. But I think there's some fantastic work. And the fact that we can share ideas at a global level and then implement them locally is so valuable.
I think one of the things you said right up front was so accurate, is that 15, 20 years ago, our politicians were perhaps of a different ilk. And Barry will remember just a couple of months ago, the Premier for New South Wales, the state that we live in here in Australia, he was quoted in the Sunday paper as saying, I get up and I go to the gym every morning. And it's like, we got a much better chance of swinging him to the exercise and the wellness side of things than if he was a beer swilling, smoking, late night partier, it would have been a far more challenging. I do want to come back to the election because we've got one coming up in Australia and obviously there's a big one coming up in the US. I want to come back to that. But Liz, there's a couple of other little things that are happening in the US that we see you guys sneeze and we catch a cold down under. And that is, for example, the one click to cancel. And that's, to me, has been a really interesting thing that the fitness industry's got caught up in because of the other subscription businesses that are proving difficult. There's also the right to be forgotten that's now raised its head here and around the world, coming out of Europe into the US, and I'm sure will come to us, which really nullifies us as businesses potentially being able to market to ex-members or alumni members ever again. Where do you guys as the Health and Fitness Association sit with those laws?
Yeah, so there's two things there, and it's click to cancel and auto renewal. And we're fighting it at both the state level and the federal level. So let me start at the state level. That we're engaged right now in 31 state fights on click to cancel bills. And all 31 of those are a different approach to how to handle click to cancel. So it's not streamlined, it's a patchwork, it's a disaster. So now opposite on the federal side, you've got FTC coming down on us, wanting it to be a one click to cancel campaign as well. So we're fighting on the federal level where we've submitted 14, I think, pages of comments so far with the FTC to say, how do we have a reasonable solution here? The technology just doesn't even exist on one hand to even be able to just click to cancel. That's not a thing. So we have a lot of education going on there at the federal level. But now at the state level, actually, we had a great win in both New Jersey and California last year on the click to cancel. So for example, California had a proposed click to cancel bill that had said, you need to man your front desk with somebody for 12 hours a day who will answer the phone to be able to get out of their membership. And so we did the math on that, and that was going to mean $60,000 per employee per club to do this in one state. So we fought that, we won it, and then we had a great example when New Jersey came and tried to do the same thing. And actually, we worked directly with the New Jersey legislator on why this isn't feasible and what's a workable solution for business. And now we have model legislation, which is fantastic. So now most of our states are done with their legislative sessions, but as they start to heat up again, we will introduce model legislation on this that's consistent across all 50 states, and then we'll help our federal argument at the same time. And that's just click to cancel and auto renewal. I won't get at anything else unless you want me to.
I want to pick up on that because you just said if that legislation had got through, it would have cost pretty much every gym 60 grand. A membership to the Health and Fitness Association is way less than 60 grand. And that's a very small investment to save yourself.
I know, Justin, that's what we say. It's an insurance policy, quite frankly. I mean, if you look at the dues that probably any of us charge any of our members compared to what the legislative threats would be if one of these pieces of legislation passed, that pays for your dues right there in and of itself. And we're seeing this time after time on the state level with trying to eliminate liability protections is another big one going on here. Another one is trying to force members to accept cash for memberships, which is just hard to do. And most people don't pay by cash. And then another one that they're trying to tie any of our gyms and fitness centers to the fast food industry. So if we are serving a smoothie or some sort of protein shake, that they could call us the fast food industry. So there are just arrows coming at us everywhere. And you look at what your dues investment is, as far as any one of those passed, it would be worth your investment.
Oh, absolutely. Barry, we're recording this at the beginning of September, and I want to say if it wasn't the last week of August, it was the second last week of August, that I was sitting watching Channel 7 News, 6 o'clock at night, and up pops subscription memberships, and that the government want to get their teeth into it here in Australia as well.
Yeah, I perhaps have a slightly different view to Liz on this. I think you have to be very careful how we handle it. This year, for the first time in Australia, so I'm told by industry stalwarts, was the first year in January we didn't have lots of consumer protection advice to our general community about taking out gym memberships and be aware of contracts and stuff like that. First year. So I think that hopefully is a reflection of our industry being perceived in a different light than maybe it had been. I have no problem with auto renewal. I mean, I do that with my Netflix or that sort of gear. I think that's part of what we're used to. But literally yesterday, the West Australian Consumer Affairs Department put out a newsletter saying that they are aware of some gyms in WA charging $1,000 to cancel memberships or insisting on people coming in physically to a gym to cancel. And it says in the notice, this is against the law, we will prosecute. As we're trying to, I guess, position ourselves in preventative health sector and get government on side, I think we need to be very careful that we don't provide the media with ammunition to actually have a go at us, because that'll scare the government off. In our code of practice here at AusActive for our businesses, it is that you facilitate people that want to leave a gym in a way which is mutually acceptable to both parties. So I guess I have a slightly different view to what Liz may have in the States and so on. Yeah, all I can say is I think we need to work with the government and try and get on the front foot rather than react to legislation that comes in. Here in Australia, you may remember, JT, back in 2015, there used to be an industry called the sunbed industry. There was 3 cases of people getting melanoma, allegedly, through overexposure in the sunbed industry. They didn't regulate it. They shut it down. Now, they're not going to shut our industry down because we're too important, but I think we need to be careful that we are seen by government as being willing to talk to them and work out some really good ideas that's satisfactory for everybody rather than just putting up the barriers and saying, no, not interested.
Barry, the shaking hands and kissing babies has started in Australia for the politicians. We have an election in, I think it's March next year.
Well, it's to be held by May, JT.
It's going to be held by May, that's right, yes.
The story we're hearing is March at this stage, yeah.
What part does AusActive play? Do gyms play? Do gym members play in that election?
Well, I think this continues on from my previous answer in terms of our role in preventive health. The next 8 to 9 months for our industry, led by AusActive, is going to be, I think, crucial for the next decade. If we can get a couple of runs on the board, and it's interesting you talked about the Premier here in New South Wales talking about his exercise. Well, Jim Chalmers, our Treasurer, is a very strong F45 fan. He goes to the gym every morning. So we have a lot of people that understand the benefits of it. We just need to be able to give them the dollar value of the importance of the return on investment. Now, depending on who you read and what you read from research, it's between 7 and 20 times every dollar invested, $7 back, $20 back on savings to the taxpayers. I guess the pressure is on us as an industry association is to go back to the government and say, look, this is the evidence. There was an article in the paper this morning about the government following evidence-based policy. Well, we have the evidence. There's research from across the world and in Australia which shows the effectiveness of investing in preventive health. We just need to get the government to listen to that.
Liz, the Super Bowl of elections is coming up in November. It's fantastic being down under. We get to watch everything from the sidelines. You're probably neck deep in having meetings with both sides. And while this is not a political podcast, how does the industry fit in both sides in their deliberations or procrastination about policies for us?
Listen, we're a politically neutral industry, which is the good news. So no matter how this election shakes out, we're going to have friends and allies on both sides. So we've been doing our homework, getting ready for it, making sure that both sides know who we are, what we do, who we employ, how much we pay in taxes, all of that, good stuff. So of course, we're building political relationships on both sides. And of course, political relationships take time. So some we're just starting to build and some we've had for years and years and years. So we're also, as much as the world likes to watch our presidential circus, and it is, there's other really important elections that happen at the same time, right? Our House of Representatives and Senate. And frankly, that's where all of our legislation lies. So the White House matters. It matters a lot, but there's other sort of elections behind that, the draft behind it, that matter. So we're just doing our job. We're making sure that they know that we're an industry that shouldn't be left behind. It should be taken seriously, that we're part of preventative healthcare, look at the dollars and cents of all we do. And so it'll be fun. And we're certainly already involved in it. And then it gets fun after the election too sometimes, because if things flip, then you really have an interesting opportunity with what they call a lame duck session in between this administration and the next one. Those are interesting days where you can pass a lot of things depending on how things shake out.
Richard, I've got a question for you. You've heard both of this and you live in this world. I guess one of the problems as associations is that you work your asses off in this lobbying area, but the ROI is slow and we need patience from our industry. So what's your advice to all of the constituents in our industry about that kind of patience level?
Yeah, look, I think the ROI is actually huge, but it's slow and they're not mutually exclusive concepts. I'd actually steal a line or a quote that is often used in technology. I think we'll achieve far less in the next year than you might want, but we have achieved far more in 10 years than most people realize. And it's not until you go back in time that you realize that. You go back 10 years. As Barry Wood mentioned, the media every January would talk about gym memberships and don't sign up because you just won't go. That was just every year on year. My job was to get that out of the news. And so some years they didn't print it because I gave them some research that showed that wasn't actually true. But that was all I was fighting most of the time in the media to not have stories about gyms. And that's changed. Now, I would say in New Zealand alone, I'm on national television at least once a month talking about the benefits of exercise. And that's not just our work. That's because there's been a sea change in the perception of the media, of the public, and even of politicians. And so we have achieved a huge amount, but it's not until you look back that you can see that. So it is incredibly valuable, but it takes time. And as long as people understand that. And the other thing is you can do a huge amount of work and then get nothing in a particular field. So if you lobby a particular politician, or heaven forbid that politician does something stupid and then gets fired, which they do all the time, or they get voted out, or you name it. There's so many ways. Politics is very fickle. And so, or even a worker inside a government agency who might be very senior, but then they get moved to the side or it's no longer their portfolio. That's the reality of, and I wouldn't actually call it lobbying, I'd call it advocacy. And the reason is, we don't lobby anybody. Like Liz says, we're politically neutral. We're not trying to say, buy our thing because our industry is an industry and that's what my people pay me to say. No, it's because I genuinely believe, and I think we all do, exercise is truly magical in terms of the abilities it has to transform people's lives and save government's money. And that is true if we can go from the evidence. But I think it does take time and patience is key.
You're a membership-based association. So come in close and just imagine that there's no one else listening. It's just you and me. Does it really piss you off that not everybody joins? Because everybody benefits. And you got some people that are contributing and then there's others that aren't contributing, yet they're getting to reap the benefits of this. Does that just not rate you sometimes?
I'm going to say no. And the reason is that if I spent time and energy thinking about what pissed me off, then I wouldn't be spending time and energy on the things that actually matter. So yeah, look, in a perfect world, everyone would, but that's true of everything. I mean, if you go back to Economics 101, it's the tragedy of the commons. And anyone that doesn't know it, Google it, you'll find out. So there's a very good reason why some people will, be carried on the coattails, so to speak. But I always pitch and go, if you believe in what we do, even if you don't like how we do it, get involved. And if need be, suggest to change it. So, I don't think, certainly I can speak for Exercise New Zealand, we're not perfect at everything we do. What we do believe, though, is in the power of exercise and bringing that to everyone in New Zealand. And if we could only do that, the more people that support us, the more that we can get that work done. And that applies to every association. And if you don't like how your association is working, then it's another reason to join. Join and change and suggest the change.
Are your membership numbers going up?
Yeah, so our membership numbers are going up. In fact, it's interesting that what Barry said earlier about the C word, we had our biggest increase through the pandemic. Now, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but the end result was incredibly positive. And it was unintentional. We made some strategic decisions, for example, funny enough, back to your point about doing things for free. All of our, I'm going to use the word COVID, advice was free to the industry. Now, we could have said, that's members only, you got to pay for it. And we said, no, the people that most need it are the people that probably don't even are members who don't even understand the issues. We will give that away. And we had to be quicker than the government in getting information out to the industry. And it worked. It wasn't actually a growth strategy. It was a let's do the right thing. And we were even at the point of saying we'll spend our last dollar, our last dying breath as it were, trying to support the industry because we didn't know if we were going to exist, because that was true of many businesses.
And that was the same for AusActive, wasn't it, Barry? You grew as well during COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. And that momentum in our business side has been maintained, JT. Our membership numbers of businesses is higher than it's ever been. I think the beauty of COVID, which is why, as I said before, it was good for the sector, it was also good for us, to be quite honest, because it demonstrated to the sector the importance and value of having a voice. Speaking of government, it still staggers me that during COVID, we were advocating for gyms to be reopened because of what we knew about gyms as opposed to the rubbish the government and particularly some chief health officers were putting out, some of the absolute garbage I was saying about gyms and so on. And yet another player in our sector criticised us for actually asking for gyms to reopen, saying we should be complying with government dictate. And it staggered me that another organisation purporting to represent our sector was actually out there supporting, really negative comments. So just to come back to the question you gave to Richard also about advocacy, it's a catch-22 for associations. If we don't tell our members what we're doing, then they say, what are you guys doing? Why should we join? The trouble with telling them what they're doing is if you don't get that fairly quick success, they can sometimes say, well, how effective are you? You've been doing this, you've got no runs on the board. So it's a fine line and a fine balance between keeping your members informed and I guess not over-promising and under-delivering. And advocacy, as Richard said, and we all know because we've been in it for a long time, it's, slowly you get there and then all of a sudden the door opens and all of a sudden you've got these huge successes and achievements. Then you've got to get the next thing to advocate on behalf of your sector to maintain that membership and the interest. The longer-term strategic partners and members, they understand exactly what we're on about here. The short term, those that are in the business, they might have bought a franchise as an investment, have completely hands off. They don't understand the importance of industry associations, and probably never will. We can't expect them to do that. But I think the ones that are in the business for the long term, that share our vision and we share their vision and hopefully reflect it, they understand and they commit and maintain their membership.
Liz, with the Health and Fitness Association, from the outside looking in, you've now got some massive support from some of the biggest brands in the United States. And obviously that's helping in regard to the lobbying efforts. How are your membership numbers looking?
Yeah, they're good. So it's a little bit funky to try to look past whatever 20 was going on in 21 and 22, because 30% of our industry in the US at least had gone out of business permanently. So our numbers were a little funky in those 2 years. But in this last year in 2023, we're up 15% as far as members to the Health and Fitness Association, which is pretty amazing. And then actually, so in our Health and Consumer Report, which is coming out in October, we are seeing that dues now on average will be $65 per month in 2023. Last year, they were hovering somewhere between $50 and $54. So a pretty significant jump in what people are paying more now monthly. And what we're seeing is that as people are paying more monthly, that we're actually having a record amount of people that are joining gym memberships. So 72.9 million in the US, which is up almost 6% from last year. So altogether, people are raising dues, they're paying dues, and we're getting more members out of it. So it's a bright story to be telling this year in 2023.
Liz, how do you get that actual data?
You pay for it. I mean, you have all kinds of different consortium of people that do the research, that do everything from phone calls to actual data mining. And we went through a very expensive process to figure out, even in the US, what the size and scope of our industry was in the US. And with that, we were able to learn that we have 220,000 potential facilities in the US. And we didn't know that until a few months ago. So now we know, well, we have a great story to tell. We know what's possible and what we could actually be going and looking for to get what's reasonable within the future.
Yeah, fascinating. That's superb data. And I would back that up, to be honest, anecdotally, with our Rex Roundtable members. I've seen their dues increase dramatically in the last 12 months. And we're actually starting to see, and Barry and Richard will laugh at this, that the US market's catching up to what we've been doing down under for years, where they're moving from monthly to bi-weekly, which of course increases the yield that we receive per member over the course of a year. So there's definitely that flowing through as well. We're almost to the end of this great interview, and I really appreciate your time. Let's start with you, Barry, on this one. If you had 30 seconds on the lectern to speak to the entire industry, either in your country or globally, the industry, not the consumers, not the government, but our industry, what would you say to them?
Okay, so JT, you know that I come from the early childhood sector as my background professionally, and I still believe the early childhood profession is the most important role and career, etc., in our society. But coming pretty close after that is our sector. The role that we play and can play is significant in improving community health and well-being, both physically and mentally. I think the people that operate in our sector, the industries, the individuals, need to understand and appreciate the potential that we have to add value to the wider community and get behind industry associations so that we can actually present that potential to government to realise that potential.
Oh, I like that. Your 30 seconds was terrific. Liz, you get to talk to the entire industry, either domestically or internationally. What would you say to the industry?
I would say get involved, and you need to get involved at every level, be it local, state, federal, with your province, whatever it is, and make those relationships, because relationships count. And if you make them over time, and if you educate on who you're employing, what kind of impact you're making on your community, those relationships will matter later on in life. And when you talk about something like an advocacy and free riders, it's not just an opportunity to make relationships, it's really a responsibility. So if you're not advocating for yourself, associations, we're going to do it, but really you're going to be the best advocate for yourself. And similar to what Barry said, I think this industry is one of the most important ones that exists, and we're the good guys. So I think we've got a good story to tell, that we are making people healthier, both physically and mentally, and we're living longer and better lives. And what a great story to tell. It's not a hard one to tell. Just get out there and tell it.
Just a quick story I'll tell you. We have a Rex member and he pays $1,000 to the blue team and his wife pays $1,000 to the red team in their local community. So they've worked out that the $1,000 is the mark that you need to pay to be able to have the private phone number or email of the local representative. Richard, have we still got you?
Yeah, we have. So, look, if I was talking to the entire industry, I would say three things. First of all, absolutely most importantly, work together in every possible way that you can. And whether that is collaborate with local providers of exercise that may not compete with you, getting people active, work with your associations, just work with others because we have a big problem with inactivity globally. Secondly, I'd say believe in what you do because it's absolutely phenomenal, the product that we offer. Exercise professionals, exercise facilities. It's amazing and never, ever, ever underestimate it. And the third thing I'd really stress home, particularly those who are involved at the coalface, who are actually helping people to move. If you can help someone to exercise and do that on a regular basis, you are giving them one of the greatest gifts in their life ever. Remember that, keep doing it, and just tell everybody.
You guys are good. Your 30 seconds was fantastic. All right, the way we finish every single episode of version 3 of the Fitness Business Podcast is to give our community a 90-day challenge. We've talked about a whole bunch of things in relation to advocacy. We've talked about joining associations. We've talked about the return on investment when you do join your associations. We've covered so much. I want to start with you, Richard. What's your 90-day challenge for any of our FBP community in your country who are listening today?
So I would say use that 90 days to do a number of things. First of all, identify ways in which you can work with your association. If you're a member, you might be giving them feedback. You might be filling out surveys, which is really important for us. As Liz was talking about, some of the data that we gather in, we need you to give it to us so that we can analyze it in the first place. But also, if you're not a member, to reach out to your association and find out what they do. And if need be, give feedback on here's the things that I think you can improve on. And do the same thing if you're an existing member as well. Here's the things I like about what you do, but here's the things I think you can improve on in a constructive way, in the same way that someone might do that to your business in terms of saying, look, I'm not a member of your club because you don't offer yoga. Well, thanks for that. I might choose not to offer yoga, but at least I understand that's the reason. But is there something else? Is there a fundamental concern you have? And quite often you'll find they are actually based on misinformation, but let's have that conversation because once sunlight is a great disinfectant and it's a really good thing if we can actually bring light into this conversation to see transparency. Let's talk about your concerns, but use that 90 days to think about how you can engage with your industry association, whether you're a member and you're giving feedback or you're not a member and you're saying, here's what I like.
Thanks, Richard. Liz, 56% of our current listener base is in the United States. So what challenge would you issue the Americans listening today over their 90 days?
So I would challenge them to do two things. If they are in the business and running a business or any way, shape, or involved in a business, to get to know your association, just like Richard said, tell them your concerns, tell them what you need from them. And then I would challenge them to get to know a member of Congress, invite them into your facility, show them around, show them what you do, put them on a treadmill, get them lifting a weight, take a picture of it, put it on social media. All of that goes a really long way. And then if you're a consumer, I would just say, don't forget what it feels like to get up and move. And, we have such a mental health crisis in this whole world that sometimes all you need to do is go outside for a 5-minute walk and it changes your day. So I would say, think about what kind of community you could be joining with the gym and what that could do for both your physical and your mental health.
Great advice. Thank you. Barry, 24% of our listeners are from Australia. What's your 90-day challenge for them?
I say my challenge for these people, JT, is to sit back and reflect, ask themselves, why are they in this industry? Have they bought a franchise just for a return on their investment? Have they bought a franchise or are they in the independent business, whatever, to make life better for Australians in the community? Ask why they are there and drill down to what their motivation is. Now, hopefully the motivation is pick up on what Richard and Liz have said, to make a better community. I totally support Liz's suggestion that they reach out to their local member federally, go and either invite them into the facility to see what they do there and meet the staff, or go and see the member in their local electorate office. Once they've got that meeting established, contact us, whether they are a member AusActive or not, ask us what our advocacy priorities are, and then reinforce those priorities when they meet with that local member. We have an election coming up here, as we know, sometime between now and March next year. Local members respond to their local communities. The best way of getting them involved and responsive is to introduce yourself and tell them what you can do for them. Give them a photo opportunity wherever you like, but get involved politically. That's how it's going to change.
Thanks, Barry. I am privy and have been privy over the last 30 years to see behind the scenes of what happens at these associations. And I want to say a huge thank you to these three associations and the current leaders of them. Much of the work you guys do goes unseen. The three of you, in colloquial terms, you work your asses off and you do a great job. And I want to say thank you to the three of you. Plus, I want to say thank you to your respective boards of directors that obviously help with strategies, simply to make our industry better, which helps the healthcare costs lower around the world. So thank you so much for joining us today. And please continue the good fight.
Welcome to our 3-minute sponsors pitch on the Fitness Business Podcast. We spotlight a Rex Roundtable trusted supplier who provides innovative solutions to help you enhance your facility, boost member engagement, and increase profitability. Stay tuned to discover their suggested actions to elevate your fitness business to the next level.
Hello, my name is Dana Milkey, and I'm the General Manager for eGym North America. Today, I wanted to spend a little time talking about a very scary word, I think, for a lot of people, not just in our industry. It's not a word, it's AI. One of the things that I think we do a lot in this industry is we hear buzzwords or phrase words and we push them aside because they seem super complicated or whatever. What I really want you to think about today is AI can and should equal efficiency in your business. So for example, in your marketing content world, AI is a great tool to help you write the content that you need. It's also a great tool to do research on your community because it's going to go out to the World Wide Web. It's going to pull all the data in your community, and it's really going to help you understand who your target audience is, which will then help you create and refine a message. And then it will help you, at least at a base level, build that first messaging that you're going to send out and give you the opportunity to further refine it based on the knowledge and experience that you bring. We like to think about AI more as efficiency than replacing people, those types of scary things that you hear out there. So my challenge to you today is take a look at your business, think about areas that you could become more efficient, and then turn to AI, because ultimately what AI should deliver for your business, for any business, is increased efficiency. eGym is the leading fitness technology company in the industry. We think about and work with AI every day. And if you want to talk a little bit more about what that looks like for eGym and how we apply it to the fitness industry to help operators improve performance, love to have that conversation. Easiest way to reach me is either my cell phone, 206-601-8971, or my email, dana.milkey@egym.com. Thank you.
Here are 4 Rex Roundtable's trusted suppliers you should check out. Smart Health Clubs, offering customizable fitness software solutions for clubs. Saltbox, delivering digital and traditional marketing solutions. Reinig Insurance. Ken the Insurance Guy specialises in risk management and insurance for fitness businesses. Clubcom, providing gyms digital entertainment, communication, and revenue solutions. I really hope you have a new appreciation of the effort, the hard work, and indeed the strategy that your national associations are doing for our industry. I want to encourage you to visit their websites, and if you are at all like me where you're unhappy or unimpressed about their actions, then stop shouting from the sidelines. Get into the game and help your industry. Become a volunteer. Thanks, Dana, for enlightening us on eGym and how it will positively impact our member workout experience. You've got some actionable steps from today's episode to enhance your leadership, drive innovation, and boost profits. And I'm eager to hear all your wins. In fact, everybody in the FB community is. So please jump into our LinkedIn community and share some of those wins. Now, our next episode, I'm going to be chatting with Jamie Kennedy from Brave Moon Podcasts. We are going to be delving into the why and the how to make podcasting part of your marketing arsenal. And I think she should know because she's now producing this podcast. So thanks, Jamie, and welcome to the FBP family. Join me in 2 weeks to hear all of the inside tips on running your own podcast. So are you feeling now a little bit inspired from this episode? Show your support to your fitness business podcast by leaving us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners thanks to the algorithm, and that makes us at FBP HQ super excited. I would truly be grateful if you would drop us a review in the next couple of days. Now, what we leave behind is not set in stone monument, but what is woven into the lives of others. I'll catch you in 2 weeks.